Hey, Cowboys Nation. Welcome to your ultimate destination for all things Dallas Cowboys. From the latest news, game analyses, rumors, to deep dives into player performances and strategies, we've got you covered. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a play. Let's dive into everything you need to know about America's team. The Dallas Cowboys have always carried this aura of being a franchise that loves the spotlight, thrives under pressure, and attracts the kind of stories that make headlines across the league. And now, with the addition of Tevin Jenkins to their offensive line, the rumor mill is exploding with talk of a new wall forming right in front of the quarterback. A wall that feels less like a line of ordinary men and more like an impenetrable fortress designed to erase every defensive scheme that dares to challenge it. And when you think about the history of this team, with all the great linemen they've had protecting their stars, it feels almost inevitable that they would make a move like this, a move that screams ambition, screams urgency, and screams that the Cowboys want to control the trenches in a way that forces every opponent to adjust their game plan before even stepping on the field. Because in football, as we all know, games are won and lost right there, in those few brutal seconds after the snap. And if Jenkins really becomes the anchor people believe he can be, this could completely shift the balance of power in the NFC, putting Dallas back in the conversation as more than just hopeful contenders, but as a real nightmare matchup for any team looking to disrupt their offensive rhythm week after week. When you start digging into what makes Tevin Jenkins such a fascinating figure in this whole equation, it's not just his size, though of course it's 6'6", and weighing well over 300 pounds. He brings that raw physicality you simply cannot coach. But it's the way he moves with that size, the rare combination of brute force and controlled footwork that allows him to both absorb bull rushers and adjust to those slick, edge-bending pass rushers who rely on quickness. And that kind of versatility is exactly what the Cowboys have been craving, because the truth is injuries and inconsistency have haunted this offensive line in recent years, leaving Dak Prescott exposed far too often, and fans know all too well how costly that can be, not just in terms of sacks and pressures, but in terms of rhythm, confidence, and ultimately the trust a quarterback has when he drops back in the pocket. And the word going around is that Jenkins could be the missing piece, the guy who not only plugs a hole, but changes the entire identity of the unit, transforming them from a shaky, sometimes overmatched group into a cohesive and terrifying shield that makes defenses think twice before dialing up exotic blitz packages. Because why take the risk if you're only going to hit a brick wall? Now, whispers coming out of training facilities suggest that even though the signing hasn't been officially announced in bold, flashing lights, the players are already buzzing. There's a different energy in the locker room. The kind of energy that happens when a roster senses that management is making real moves to strengthen their shot at glory. And you know how that translates on the field, right? It's not just about technique or assignments. It's about confidence, about stepping into a game knowing that your quarterback is safer, knowing that the offensive line has more bite. And that's where Jenkins comes in as this psychological boost, as much as a physical upgrade, because defenders are now forced to look across the line of scrimmage and measure themselves not just against a group, but against a man with a reputation. And reputations in football matter. They spread, they linger, they get inside helmets. So by the time that defensive end lines up, he's already thinking about how heavy those hands are going to feel and how difficult it will be to shed a block that seems endless. And that kind of presence alone makes everyone around him play bigger, stronger, and with more swagger. The Cowboys' offense has never lacked talent in its skill positions, with playmakers at wide receiver, a quarterback who, when given time, can carve up secondaries, and running backs capable of pounding through holes or slipping into open spaces. But all of that, every single highlight reel play, every big touchdown, every game-winning drive depends entirely on what happens up front. And the harsh truth is, Dallas has seen its brightest moments dimmed by cracks in protection, with pressure, collapsing plays before they could even develop. And that's where this move feels so symbolic, as if the organization is saying enough is enough. We are not going to let this offense sputter because of preventable breakdowns. And with Jenkins stepping in, the vision is clear. Build a wall so sturdy that the quarterback feels like he has all the time in the world. And when a quarterback feels that, his reads become sharper, his throws more accurate, his poise unshakable, and that ripple effect could turn the Cowboys from inconsistent offense into a relentless machine, one that doesn't just score, but scores at will, breaking the will of defenses before the final whistle even blows. Of course, no move in the NFL comes without questions, without speculation about fit, durability, or whether the hype can truly match the production once the pads are on and the real bullets are flying. And that's where the intrigue lies with Jenkins, because while his potential is enormous, and his highlights from past seasons show a man who can dominate one-on-one matchups, the Cowboys faithful are asking whether this is the moment he takes that leap from promising player to household name, and whether he can stay healthy enough to be the foundation piece the team clearly envisions. Because let's not forget, this is a league where the grind is merciless, where injuries can derail even the most perfectly constructed rosters. And yet, there's a sense of optimism that feels different this time, as if the stars are aligning, as if the Cowboys have stumbled upon not just a patch for a problem, but the kind of answer that defines a new era. And maybe that's why fans are whispering with more excitement than skepticism, ready to see if the legend of this supposed wall really comes to life once the season kicks off. And then there's the bigger picture, the narrative that always swirls around the Cowboys, because whether they're winning big or stumbling in heartbreaking fashion, they're always talked about, always dissected, always magnified. And adding a name like Jenkins just feeds that machine, giving analysts more fuel, giving fans more reason to dream, and giving rivals more reason to worry. Because in a league that thrives on parity, any team that strengthens its trenches immediately jumps up the hierarchy of threats. And while nothing is guaranteed, the move signals intent, it signals ambition, and it sends a message that Dallas isn't satisfied with being just another playoff hopeful. They're hungry for something more, something that requires the kind of physical dominance that starts with an offensive line capable of dictating games, and whether Jenkins truly becomes that immovable wall or not. The very idea of him anchoring this unit has already sparked a storm of speculation, turning the Cowboys into one of the most talked about teams yet again. And isn't that exactly where they love to be, right in the center of attention, daring the rest of the NFL to try and knock them off their pedestal? The excitement swirling around Jenkins doesn't just revolve around what he brings individually, but also about the domino effect he could unleash across the rest of the Cowboys' offensive line. Because football is as much about chemistry as it is about raw strength. And when one anchor sets the tone, everyone else seems to fall in line, elevating their play, cleaning up their mistakes, and feeding off that energy. And when you think about Dallas' history of elite units from the days when Emmitt Smith was running behind that legendary wall in the 90s to more recent years when names like Tyron Smith were setting the standard, you realize this franchise knows exactly how valuable it is to have a line that feels unshakable. And Jenkins might be the spark that brings back that identity, that culture of dominance up front, where opponents walk into a game already expecting a physical beating. And that psychological advantage matters more than stats, because once defenders know they're about to endure 60 minutes of punishment, their fight weakens, their focus slips, and suddenly, those big plays on offense become inevitable rather than just hopeful dreams. And it's not just about blocking in the passing game, because what makes Jenkins so intriguing is how he impacts the running attack. And that might be where this addition really shines, since Cowboys fans have longed to see a consistent ground game that could take pressure off Dak Prescott, keep defenses honest, and set up those play-action strikes that open up explosive opportunities down the field. And having a mauler like Jenkins who loves to drive defenders backward could give Dallas exactly that, a punishing run game that forces linebackers to step forward, safeties to creep closer, and suddenly receivers like CeeDee Lamb find themselves with one-on-one matchups they can exploit all day long. And when you start painting that picture, it's easy to see why this rumor is turning so many heads, because an offensive line that dominates both phases of the game doesn't just improve efficiency. It reshapes the entire playbook, giving coordinators endless options, endless creativity, and endless ways to torture opposing defenses until they have no answers left, just frustration and fatigue written across their faces. The buzz around training camps is that even veterans are looking at Jenkins with respect, not just because of his physical tools, but because of his demeanor, the way he carries himself, That attitude of quiet aggression that offensive line coaches adore, because it's not about chest-thumping celebrations or sound bites. It's about lining up play after play and imposing your will in ways that don't always make highlight reels, but absolutely decide games. And for the Cowboys, having a figure like that in the trenches could change the culture entirely, reinforcing the mindset that this team is built to win through dominance, not luck. And the funny part is that's the kind of edge fans have been begging for, the kind of nasty streak that makes opponents dread facing Dallas. And when you combine that with the natural flair of their offense and the Showtime aura that follows the star on the helmet, you suddenly get a blend of grit and glamour, toughness and style, the perfect formula for a team that wants to not only win, but win with a statement. Win in a way that leaves no doubt about who controlled the field from the very first snap. But before we continue, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give this video a like. Your support helps us keep bringing you the latest updates on the Dallas Cowboys. Feel free to share your thoughts on the news in the comments as well. But while optimism is spilling over, there's also a layer of cautious anticipation because Cowboys fans have been burned before. They've lived through the hype, they believed in promises, only to see things unravel in December or in the first round of the playoffs. So the whispers about Jenkins come with a sense of tempered hope, the kind of hope that says, yes, this could be the piece, but let's see it under the lights. Let's see it against the Eagles front. Let's see it against the 49ers. Pass rush. Let's see it when the stakes are highest, because that's when legends are made and when walls either stand firm or crumble under pressure. And for Jenkins, that's the challenge, to take all this energy, all this hype, and translate it into consistent, bruising, season-defining performances that turn him from a rumor into a reality, from a whispered savior into a confirmed cornerstone. And if he pulls it off, the narrative shifts from speculation to admiration. And suddenly the Cowboys aren't just dreamers. They're contenders with a reputation that makes everyone take notice. Another fascinating aspect of this rumor is how it reshapes expectations for Dak Prescott. Because quarterbacks thrive when they know their blind side is secure, when they can trust the pocket to hold just long enough to progress through reads without that internal clock screaming panic. And that could be the ultimate gift Jenkins brings, the kind of gift that doesn't show up on personal stat lines, but transforms careers. Because when a quarterback stops worrying about survival and starts focusing purely on execution, his confidence soars, his decision-making sharpens, and his production skyrockets. And if that's the case, the Cowboys' offense could evolve from being streaky and situational into a relentless, week-in, week-out threat. And while critics love to dissect Prescott's every misstep, imagine how different those conversations become when the tape shows him throwing from a clean pocket, dropping dimes, orchestrating drives with poise, and silencing doubters simply because he's protected the way a franchise quarterback should always be protected. And suddenly, instead of talking about whether he's the guy, people will be talking about whether the Cowboys just built the perfect environment to maximize his prime years. At the end of the day, whether this rumor becomes official or remains just an electrifying possibility, the story itself reflects the essence of what makes football talk so addictive. Because it's about hope, it's about dreams, it's about imagining what could be if the pieces fall into place. And for Cowboys fans, dreaming is practically part of the identity, a cycle of anticipation, frustration, and rebirth that keeps the spotlight firmly on America's team, and with Tevin Jenkins potentially stepping in as the new pillar of protection. The latest chapter of that cycle feels particularly juicy because it's not about flashy signings or headline-grabbing skill players. It's about the dirty work in the trenches, the kind of work that hardcore fans respect and real contenders are built upon. And that's why this rumor resonates so strongly, because if it turns out to be true, it doesn't just give Dallas another piece. It gives them a foundation, a wall, a reason to believe that maybe, just maybe, this is the year the Cowboys finally transform whispers into roars, speculation into domination, and potential into the kind of reality that ends with confetti falling and history being written under the brightest lights of all. That's it for this update. If you enjoyed the video and want to keep receiving exclusive news about the Dallas Cowboys, please subscribe to our channel and give this video a like. We always look forward to your comments and opinions. See you in the next video.